morning, everyone. Welcome to Bravo 22 Live. I'm Micky Goble. I'm a Bravo 22 member, and I've been for about 5 years. I started off at Boots in the Door in Plymouth, and then moved on to the Unspoken in Newcastle and the Unspoken in the Edinburgh Fringe. Today, I've got the great pleasure of introducing you one of Britain's greatest comedians, actors, and authors to talk about life in the business and how to survive it. Today, I'd like to introduce you, Miss Jo Bran. Jo, welcome to Bravo 22.
Thank you very much, Micky. Hello, hi everyone.
It's throughout. Thank you, Jo. Throughout the interview, we'll be taking questions on the web chat and all that nonsense. But first of all, Jo, tell me about how did you first get into the business?
Well, I was a nurse for 10 years, from about the age of 21 to 30, and I worked in a 24-hour psychiatric emergency clinic, and actually I'd always wanted to be a comedian. And so all the time that I was doing my nursing bit, I had like an idea in my head to have a go at it. And eventually a friend of mine said to me, look, you know, if you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, stop going on about it. You're boring. So I eventually agreed with a friend that I would do like a little charity gig just to try out some stuff and see how it went. And it went really, really badly. But never mind. I carried on.
Was it scary? It must have been scary, leaving a job, I say secure, like the NHS, but then to move into the fluid career of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, I'd saved a little bit of money, so I gave myself 6 months, and I said I need to be earning a certain amount within 6 months or I'll go back to nursing. And I think in some ways the first night wasn't quite as scary as it could have been, because I'd had about 8 pints of lager.
Yeah, a well-known nerve remedy.
Yes, indeed.
Do you still love it 30 years in? Do you still love doing what you're doing?
I do still love it. Yeah. I mean, I do loads of different things, but I particularly like doing stand-up because I don't think there's anything to match it really. And the thing about stand-up, which I think is different from most other art forms, is that it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it or how well known you are. If you do a bad one, you do a bad one and people don't laugh. And so always, every time you do a show, you've got to be on your toes.
Yeah, and of course, back in them early days, you was up against some big people in the comedy club, and you know, I mean, and survived. How did you keep going for 30 years?
Well, I think first of all, one thing I think it's like a good lesson for life, really. When I was on stage and it was going really badly, I just tried really hard to look like I didn't care what they thought. And once you kind of keep doing that a bit, you eventually you do it. You know, you fake it, and then eventually you make it. So that really helped me. And I think the other thing as well is I had very low expectations, and I think that's another good lesson for life. Because if you always think it's never going to go anywhere, then you're really pleasantly surprised when it does. But if your expectations are too high, you're constantly disappointed. And I have to tell you, I know a lot of comedians that are constantly disappointed.
Yes, well, like I said, that's brilliant. But we got some questions coming in. We got one from Luke. Did you have an agent in those early days?
Well, what happened was the first telly show I did, Luke, was a show called Friday Night Live on Channel 4. And I didn't have an agent at that point. And I have to say that was like a good, fun show, because I was on with the Pogues, and they had a fight in the dressing room next to me while I was getting ready to go on. So that's always something lovely to remember. And after the show, someone approached me and said, I'm a comedy agent. Would you like to sign up to my agency? And I liked her, and I thought she seemed very competent. So I said yes, and she's still my agent. And that was in 1988. So...
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's like my mum.
Well, there you go. Thank you. We got another question from Lorraine. Did your training as a nurse help you through the tough times, especially recently, she says?
Yeah, I think really, yeah, Lorraine, it helped a massive amount in comedy because I was very used to, because for about 3 years before I left nursing, I was actually in charge of this 24-hour emergency clinic. So if there was any problem, or if someone refused to leave, or if someone was drunk and they were kind of causing havoc, it was always me that got wheeled out to sort of sort the problem out. So I got a huge amount of abuse. So when I started as a stand-up, I was already used to getting abused. So that was a help. I also got hit a few times, and that never happened when I was a comedian. So that was a bit of a bonus, really, a bit of a step up. So it helped me hugely. It helped me to be calm, and it also helped me to know how to behave when someone's either very angry or threatening with you, which is always a help.
With that in mind, what was your top tips survival in the comedy business?
Well, I think we've covered one, haven't we? Lower your expectations. Be nice to everyone, because you never know when you're going to come back round again. And if you've been horrible to someone in the past, they always have a long memory. Don't try and copy anybody else. I've seen loads of kind of, Julian Clary wannabes, or Jack D wannabes, or Eddie Izzard wannabes. Sort of try and be yourself. And don't moan too much, and don't be a diva. There you go.
I got a strange question from Sugar-Free Steve.
Okay.
Have you ever been to Northern Sugar-Free Steve? Yeah, he's on a diet. Have you ever been to Northern Ireland, and what survival techniques did you use afterwards?
I have been to Northern Ireland. I did a few gigs over there, actually, and I stayed at the Europa Hotel, which you probably know, Sugar-Free Steve. Yeah, it was an amazing experience, to be honest. And I think my most memorable time in that hotel was when, oh God, I do this all the time. Anyway, the lead singer of a well-known band came over to me and sat on my lap and gave me a big kiss. And he was really, really drunk. Perhaps it's just as well I'm not saying who he is. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, how are you? What have you been doing?" And he went, "I just come out of rehab today." So there you are. Bless him. I think he probably had to go straight back again.
Well, I hope it wasn't Barry White. You would have been in trouble if it was.
I love Barry White, though, don't you? Don't you think he's a sex god, Mickey? And I do.
Well, I don't want to comment on that. I don't want to diss the opposition. Right, I've got another question here, and it's from Ian. Joe, what makes you laugh since time, now or in the past? What makes you laugh?
Well, I like a bit of real life slapstick. And, since we've had social media, you can see it all the time, don't you? And I think the first thing that really made me laugh, when we were kids, our mum and dad used to make us go out for walks in the countryside all the time. We hated it. And one day we were climbing up a really big hill, and it had been raining. And my mum was just telling us off for being grumpy. And then she slipped and she slid all the way down the hill on her bum, and just landed in a big puddle of mud at the bottom. And I don't think anything's ever quite matched that for making me laugh so much without, with trying not to laugh, because she was not happy, obviously. So it's that sort of thing that makes me laugh, really.
Excellent. I've got a question here, a bit more serious, from Mick, not me. Women get a lot more scrutiny in the media than your average middle-aged woman. Yourself, Emily Maitlis, Naga Manchetti have all come under the spotlight recently. Do you see a time when this changes?
Do I see a time when coming under the spotlight will change, do you mean, or getting too much attention?
I think what he's alluding to, that the middle-aged women are kind of criticised more, shall we say.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, well, yeah, I think women generally are, to be honest. And I think in some ways it's just the power of Twitter and social media, because something that's quite a relatively small story sometimes gets blown up into something massive. And, obviously I'm kind of quite attractive, so I don't need to worry on that front. I'm joking. But so, you know, along with that all comes like, you know, lovely comments about my looks and my weight and everything. I think if you're going to be in the public eye these days, you just have to learn to live with it. And it's not easy. But I think if you can't weather the storm of, you know, I can't actually say the word I want to say next, of a big avalanche of abuse coming down on you, if you can't weather that, I would say probably it's not a good idea to be, you know, in a public performer, really.
Because going back to that, in 30 years ago, you was a heavily male-dominated area. Stand-up comedians was typically a male profession. Did you get resistance and negative comments when you first started out because you were a woman?
I did to some extent, yeah. I mean, when I first started, there were probably, I counted on the comedy circuit in London, there was like 250 male comics and about 15 women. So it was very, you know, man heavy. But the thing to say that in those days, the circuit that I started out on was what they called the alternative comedy circuit. And it was kind of quite like, it was right on, you know, there was no kind of racist stuff, no sexist stuff. People really frowned on that kind of stuff. So on the whole, those audiences were fairly positive, but occasionally places like the Comedy Store, which is, you know, very well known, that was horrendous. That on a Friday night, if you did that and you went on last at the Late Show, you went on at 2:20 in the morning. And can you imagine, Mickey, how drunk someone that was at that show would have been at 2:30 in the morning? Yeah. So, you know, yeah, you just...
cheerfully drunk, I should suspect.
Yeah, really cheerful. Well, I don't know if you think this as well, Mickey, but I think on a Friday night, people are really bad-tempered because they've just finished work and they tend to go drinking straight away if they're going out. Whereas on a Saturday night, I always really noticed it. They're much nicer and much more relaxed.
Yeah, they've had a lie-in the morning. They're going to have another one the next day, so they don't have to worry about work and that nonsense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Another question come in. Do you have any career highlights? It's from Jill.
Oh, I do. I have loads. One of my career highlights is winning an award called the Charity Champion, which is voted for by the heads of charities in England. Mm-hmm. And I was in the final 5 and I was up against Angelina Jolie and Davina McCall. And so I was so proud when I won that. It was just brilliant, you know, to think I could ever beat Angelina Jolie at anything. Well, I could beat her at a weight competition, but, you know, so that's one of my highlights. Winning a BAFTA, that was a highlight, which I won for a series called Getting On, which was about nurses. And also I won an award for my film that it was based on the novel that I wrote. So I have my hands all over it. I won Best Comedy at the National Film Awards for that. And that's called The More You Ignore Me. So I think they were probably the highlights, but a little bit higher than that are probably my kids. I have 2 daughters. They're teenagers now and they're great.
What about panel shows? What's your favourite panel show? Matt needs to know that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Matt. The one I like doing best is, I would think probably Have I Got News for You? And again, what I like about it is I've done it a lot of times now and I'm very familiar with it and I know Ian and Paul very well. And so it's just a really enjoyable thing to do. Obviously, apart from recently, it was normally after the show we would all go and have a drink together, you know, but last time I saw them they were just on a screen in my front room, so that was a bit sad.
It's not right, is it?
Not ideal, no.
It's not. What keeps you grounded? That's from David.
Well, I think I've mentioned them already, but it's my kids, you know, and all teenagers are the same. It doesn't really matter whether you're the queen or whether, you know, whether you're not. And so they can be quite sneery. Like, you know, I said to my 17-year-old the other day, oh, why don't you send an email? And she went, because I'm not 100 years old, Mum. You know, and actually, so I've tried to kind of just laugh at them and they laugh at me because, like, to them, I'm like a really old woman, you know, because I had my first child when I was 43. So I am one of those kind of older mothers that's also their child's own grandma as well. So, you know, they just laugh at me all the time when I forget words, or if I pronounce a word wrong. You know, we've been arguing for like months about how you pronounce New Look, how you pronounce WhatsApp. Apparently I say those wrong, you know, and it drives me nuts, but it's quite entertaining. I now deliberately do it wrong just to annoy you.
Yeah, it's good fun. My son's 19. He's banned me from Snapchat, apparently.
Oh no!
I don't even know what
Why?
it is. I'm glad I don't, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
From Shirley Rimmer, any big regrets in your career?
In my career, do you know what, Shirley? I decided that I wouldn't have any regrets. I mean, I've had some really appalling, shows I've done. There's maybe one actually where I did. This was absolutely years ago when I just started, and I did like a Christmas show where I was dressed up as a Christmas fairy, and they didn't tell me it was going to be filmed outside, and they put me in like, you know, a kind of greasy spoon cafe. And I thought, oh, well, all right, fine. But then they kept the cafe open. So like I'm sitting up on a ridiculous kind of high stool at the counter of the cafe. And all these like builders are coming in, getting their kind of bacon sarnie and their cup of tea. And oh my word, the mick taking that went on. Just, you know, and also it was it was crap, to be honest, and I thought no one's gonna see it because it was on a kids channel, and would you believe it, loads of my mates saw it and then just carried on, you know, taking the mick out of me. So something like that, maybe.
Excellent. I've got a question from Debbie Evans. How did you feel emotionally, mentally and physically after your 135-mile walk for comic relief?
I felt quite tired. Emotionally, I felt elated because I'd done it. Because I think, you know, like my trainer, Greg, who's like Tigger, he's so annoying. He's a sweet guy, actually. I'm only joking. But I remember him talking on this documentary we made, and I didn't know he'd said this. And he said, there's no way she's going to make it because she's morbidly obese.
Confidence in
that's not very nice, is it? I thought I was quite cheerfully obese, but there you go. So I was pleased I'd made it. I was really pleased with all the places that we visited and how great people were, you know, because a lot of the towns we went through, sort of up across the Pennines from Hull to Liverpool, I don't think anything very much ever happened there. And hundreds of people kind of came out to wave and say hello. We had some brilliant incidents. We were walking through this big estate, and this woman who, obviously, all my stories about drinking, but she'd had a couple of drinks, and she came out to say hello to me. She went, Joe, like that, and she flung her arm round me. Well, that's what she meant to do, smack me really hard round the face. Nice to meet you. So there were lots of like really good times on that walk, and you know, people like Lee Mack came and walked a day with me, and Bill Bailey, mates of mine, and Alan Davis. So it was such a brilliant experience, and it raised a lot of money as well. So I was really proud of that too.
That's brilliant. We're going from one extreme to the other here. From Lorraine again, Friday gigs are the worst, especially with drunken buns. Has it ever really upset you and made you walk off?
Yeah, it has. I've walked off probably about 3 or 4 times, and I'd very much like to be able to tell you why I did it, but I don't really think I can at this time of day. Mm-hmm. Let's have a go. For example, I was doing a show in a club called Jonglers one night about 1 o'clock in the morning, and this table full of guys on a stag night right in front of the stage. One of them got up on the table, unzipped his trousers, revealed a part of his anatomy that no one wanted to see, and invited me to do something with it. And I kind of thought that was like inappropriate, really. I don't mind people heckling me. I don't mind people saying whatever they want to say, but basically getting your Uncle John out, not a good idea. So I walked off at that point. And interestingly, I got told off by the promoter for coming off 2 minutes early. So you can't win.
Well, there you go. A question here from Baz. How did you get into the writing element of your career? We've mentioned your books and film.
I think my first bit of writing was when I had like a sketch show on Channel 4 called Through the Cake Hole. And so I was writing stuff for that with a couple of other comics that I knew. And I think what happens if you're kind of doing all right is that people will offer you work. And someone actually said to me, you know, do you want to write a sitcom? And so I think you only get one life, don't you? So I just wanted to try everything, really. So
just felt like a natural progression of writing from sketch writing into sitcom writing, then onto a book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and all along the way, you know, lots of people don't want to write a book, or they don't want to write, you know, a sketch show. But I just wanted to try as many things as I could, really.
Have you ever this is a question, sorry, this is a question from Sue. Have you had any hecklers that's really made you laugh?
Yeah, loads. And I think the thing is that if you're a comedian and a heckler is really funny, you have to just acknowledge that. If someone says something that makes the rest of the audience laugh, if you then try and sort of put them down after that, you know, with one of your best heckle put down lines, people don't like that, really. What they want is they want you to kind of acknowledge that that person's done a great heckle that's made everyone laugh, you know. You know, I had a really sweet one once in, where was it? In Leeds, that's right. And my trousers were a bit short. I don't know why, I think they'd shrunk or something. And anyway, this bloke shouted out, why don't you put some jam on your shoes and invite your trousers to tea? Which I thought was a nice little heckle. And I just said, brilliant heckle, you know. And I think everywhere you go, audiences are so different. I used to take a thing around with me that used to be used hundreds of years ago. It was called a wife leader, and it was a thing that you put round your wife's finger and you led her round by it. I'm sure there's a few blokes there going, oh, I'd like one of them. Sorry, it was like 17th century it was used. But anyway, I said to the audience, and I held it up and said, does anyone know what this is? It's a very posh audience in Cambridge. And this woman shouted out, is it a cassava juice extractor? Like, I don't even know what that is. And if there's anyone from Warrington watching, I did Warrington the next night and I held it up and said, does anyone know what that is? And this bloke shouted out, fat bird with a stick. So there you go.
Oh. Joe, I've got a question again for your Northern Irish #1 fan.
Oh, good-o.
Sugar Free Steve again. Joe, who's the greatest comedy influence and the most that's encouraged you the most?
Well, I think there's a few. I mean, for pure, not that I'm saying I'm anything like him at all in talent or anything, but for pure kind of relaxed good-naturedness and so funny, Billy Connolly. For brilliant writing and fantastic one-liners, Victoria Wood. For pure silliness and falling over and being stupid, French and Saunders. And you know, I was in a chippy recently, and I am allowed in one once a year, you know. And there was this woman who kept looking at me, and she goes, don't tell me. And I went, all right, I won't tell you. And she said, well, she went, I know who you are. And I went, okay. And she went, you're Dawn Saunders. So she made me Jennifer and Dawn at the same time. Very flattering, yeah.
So, Joe, this is a question from me. What's next for you? Where do you see yourself going to?
Well, obviously, I'll be staying in for a bit with everyone else. But I think what remains to be seen is, you know, how things will develop. I'm 62 now, and I kind of feel that if I wanted to take my foot off the accelerator, I could. And so, because I quite like sitting down and having a cup of tea, I'm probably, I would think, gonna do quite a bit more writing. I went on tour at the beginning of the year, and I hadn't toured for about 6 years because the last time that I toured, my little brother died while I was on tour, and it just completely ruined the whole kind of concept of touring for me, and I just couldn't do it for years. So it was really lovely to get back into that, and that's what I'd also like to do as well.
Well, Joe, I think we've just run out of time. We talked about everything and anything. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Joe for being with us and spending their time with us this morning. I'd like to thank everyone who's submitted questions to Joe. And I'd like to thank the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project for making these kind of web chats available for us. Joe, I'd like to thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. And
Can I say it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a bit over the last week or so, Mickey. And thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for all their great questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you.
Okay. Can I go now? Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm going for a wee. Ta-da.
You must be busting. Right, before everyone goes, there's a few announcements from Bravo 22 and the Drive Project. The upcoming events. Thursday the 18th, 11 o'clock to 11:30 on YouTube. Al Johnson, together with Kevin White, will present the first in our masterpiece series, Hands Holbein the Ambassadors. We would love to send you your requests in for any other masterpieces you would like to see discussed in future sessions. Email Alice Palmer at thedriveproject.co.uk to get and feel free to include any suggestions about any other art medium you would like to see. Wednesday the 24th, 11 a.m. we are running a college workshop, Making by Chance with Alex Julian. Again, email Alice. If you want to be on that, you got to email Alice by close of play tonight to secure your place. Future events. You've all asked us for a singing session, and we're delighted to oblige. Join us on the 24th of June at 4 p.m. to belt out a few good tunes. Absolutely no experience or talent is necessary. Join the sing-along and send in your song requests by, again, emailing Alice. There'll be a link in the bottom there, Alice's email address. Bravo 22 channel, YouTube channel, we're trying to get up to 500 subscribers. So tell your family, your friends, any military people. And once again, thank all of you for support and enthusiastic involvement, especially in today's with the questions. We want to hear from you, so please fill in the survey at the bottom of the page, where you'll also find information on a fantastic film adapted by Joe Brown from her acclaimed novel, The More You Ignore Me. It's got Sheridan Smith, Mark Addy, Sally Phillips, Ricky Tomlinson, stellar cast. It's a good movie. There's a trailer in the link below, and you can download it from Amazon Prime. And that's me, Micky Goble, saying goodbye. Thank you very much for watching this morning, and come back soon. Bye-bye.